Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords. Hope everyone's having a good holiday weekend. And someone pointed out to me yesterday, they said, hey, you never did a review of World of the Last Sun, or a flip through of it. And I'm like, no, I must have done it. I'm sure I did it. But I've looked all through my channel and I can't find one. So I'm guessing that maybe I just it escaped my mind somehow and I never got around to doing it. So here we are. I'm going to look at the craziest parts of World of the Last Sun, right? So World of the Last Sun is done by Spectre Press. It's an old school gonzo fantasy sourcebook for OSR fantasy games. It has a lot of locations. It's divided into different regions that are easy to incorporate into your own worlds if you want to, without incorporating the whole, the whole setting. Because each of the regions they're so far away from each other in the context of the original setting that they don't interact with each other very much. Weird fantasy races, high-tech equipment, ordinary and magical drugs, rules for skyship combat, random encounter and location tables, random tables for weird character origins and encounters. I think that's really underselling it. The book is 276 pages long. And that's the cover there. So some good gonzo cover art. And it details the campaign world that I've been running. It's still the second longest campaign I've ever run, but it's still going on, unlike the longest one. So there's a chance that it could end up beating it. I've been playing it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Sorry, weekly or fortnightly basis, I should say, for the last 9 years now, right? And the system that I've been running it with is Dungeon Crawl Classics. This book is presented in such a way that it's meant to be, for use in any OSR setting or with any OSR set of rules. But I guess some of the stats are oriented to be somewhat DCC-like stats. It is not an official DCC sourcebook in any way, though. There's some basic skill check rules, saving throws. So you can see here the saving throws are Fortitude, Reflex, Will. Some backstory here. This is not fiction. This is a origin myth. It's not some guy's adventure or something. You guys know how I hate story fiction, but it talks about basically the World of the Last Sun is a world that's inside a Dyson sphere that's around the last star of a dead universe. And it contains a huge variety of, it's enormous in size. And so it contains a huge variety of races and creatures and things that were all meant to be preserved. And the sphere itself is a inter-universal ship meant to try to escape the destruction of the universe. But most people in the World of the Last Sun don't know that because there was some kind of a terrible disaster. Well, first of all, because the people that really ran things were a race called the Ancients, and then there was some terrible disaster about 10,000 years ago. The Ancients disappeared. The computer called God that ran the operations of the world it became deficient. It kind of went crazy or became disabled, I guess, mentally disabled, I guess you could say. And that explains why, clerics can't get reliable, centralized control from him anymore. And a lot of the AI programs that worked with the god AI rebelled and became demon patrons. So, and civilizations that were advanced, even though not all of them were before the disaster, because a lot of, the ancients kept people as they had been. A lot of those civilizations collapsed, and now people have only kind of a mythical understanding of it, except some of the most advanced places or the most experienced people. So there's a series of basically areas. So we're the different areas of my campaign. The first one is the Middle Northern Wilderlands, which is the closest thing to a kind of normal setting you can have, except that in this kind of default fantasy place, humanity's been wiped out by a zombie plague, or practically wiped out. The elves are useless hipsters that live inside domes that have no idea how those domes even operate anymore. Most of them know neither magic nor technology, though a few elves still know a little bit of magic or a little bit of technology. The dwarves live in the mountains and are constantly trying to find a way to dig back down to the freeholds that they were forced out of by the great disaster, and they're a resentful bunch. And halflings are psychopathic cannibals that are just some of the most vicious creatures in the setting, right? And in the plains of the Middle Northern Wilderlands, they're giant chicken riders. There are still a few humans, so the character table, these are tables that let you determine, your starting background, so to say, with guides from professions here. Then you got the Northern Demon Realms, which is an area that is quite a ways away, and it's basically an oppressive, sort of like Midnight, I guess. It's a place where where the area has been conquered by a demon prince that is oppressing everybody around. Note mutants. There are lots of mutants inside. Humanity is a very small race now, as in purebred humanity, because during the Great Disaster, most of them were mutated into different kinds of mutants, some of which are basically just, like a green mutant is basically just a human that has green skin, but it's just a deviation from the original archetype. But there are some mutant humans that have weird abilities. So these are monsters you can run into, the Great Furry Plains and the Furry Bay. The Great Furry Plains is a plain full of furries. The Furry Bay, on the other hand, is an actual bay that has this kind of lichen that looks like fur on it. Further off to the east, you have the Zombie Empire, which is an empire that is ruled entirely by undead, by an intelligent zombie empress. There's a number of different classes of intelligent undead that are the aristocrats of that empire, vampires and wraiths and so on. The middle class of the undead are the whites, but the whites are not happy about that, and they have, there are movements of white supremacists that are trying to rise up against the zombie empress, because they feel like they are not. They feel like they're not getting their actual due role in the empire. There's a number of different places that are detailed here. And of course, humans, for the most part, in this part of the setting, or other races, are food or slaves. But very powerful evil humans or very capable or sneaky good humans can make their way through here. It's more of an enemy place, obviously. The demon realms and the zombie realms are places, or the zombie empire are places where people go to have adventures in. The Theocracy of Larial is run by the Religious Fantastics, which are a group that believe that they are the true messengers of God, but it's actually an error in the programming of an AI daemon that is their patron, that basically turns them all into aggressive religious soccer hooligans, I guess you could say. They're determined. They're all called Nigel, and they have a message for you about the good word of God, a message of love and peace, but they'll kick your bloody face in if you don't listen to it. Details on the conversion process, and you can have Larial as a daemon patron. Floating islands, one of the most interesting details, of course, that the Last Sun has got a whole bunch of islands that float in the interior, lower and upper areas. There are races like the Grey People and blob creatures. You can play them. And the Kekistani Skyforce, posh elves, less hipster and slightly less incompetent. The Lolri, which are known as techno-walruses, which are cyborg super scientist walrus people. And then villains like the evil guardian robots that want to exterminate all of organic life. created by Bolt 1, the wizard robot son of Bolt, the famous adventurer Bolt Zero, who was also a robot. There's also Sky Nazis, so you can go fight the Sky Nazis. There used to be a Sky Police, but now there's only a few like Sky Marshals that have the Sky Police that are still going around fighting after the Sky Police were destroyed by the Sky Nazis. You've got occupations here that you can roll randomly and details. Weird quirks of different floating islands, because some of the floating islands have different levels of culture and technology. There's tens of thousands of them, and there are some places where they're bound. If you just go around exploring, you can roll on the weird quirks. Getting around, you've got sky ships and the use of sky ships. Different types of lower band sky ships tend to look like flying boats and magic stuff. Higher band sky ships tend to be like starships and things like that, because they're the upper band doesn't have enough pressure or atmosphere to be flown in like an open air. And there's a whole generator for you to make a random floating island, which is pretty cool stuff. It's got all kinds of details in it that you can use, locations and effects. Then there's a brief description of the 10 dimensions. These are the 10 planes, of which most of them are somewhat unknown. The city of Archon, the next major area. The Archon region is a desert with a canyon, and inside the canyon there are 100 or so towers that are said to be ancient towers. You can see what they look like there, basically. They don't move anymore, but they are, people have built a great city within it. Unfortunately, the city of Archon has a number of different Machiavellian factions. This is a really good place for like political and warfare type, urban warfare type adventuring, because there's all these different groups: the old families, the Assassins Guild, the Thieves Guild, the Snake Witch, the Assassin King. There are halflings in the under level. All kinds of dangerous groups that are all fighting, and you know, the Archon is a place of constant political and you know, Machiavellian scheming and instability. And you can randomly create sections of towers there, so that you can just generate an entire tower out of these tables. There's specific weird places like the Curiosity Shop, the Snail Farms, the Dwarves of Archon, Halcyon Lords, the Evil Parrot. The Evil Parrot is a very tough opponent, by the way. Archon 0-level occupations and professions and adventures. These are different events that can happen, adventure seeds that can happen, or encounters in the different levels of Archon, including on the canyon walls of the caverns on the canyon walls, and outside in the desert. The great desert. Was it the great? I don't remember the great. It's not the Desert of Desolation, but I feel like saying that right now. I don't recall now. Next we have High Bay, and High Bay is a city on the Furry Bay, which is the city of stoners, High Bay City of Stoners, and it is the center of the drug trade in the northern continent of the World of the Last Sun. Sorry, had to move that for 1 second. There we go. So High Bay is a city where you can get all kinds of drugs. It's a very open and libertine city with a kind of late Renaissance sort of flair to it, but with some powerful and important anachronisms. It has a city government that is extremely socially libertine, but has a few weird rules. There are details of all the different areas in High Bay. And it's because it's a port, there are a number of very interesting groups of communities that come from other parts of the World of the Last Sun. And there are gangs, of course, because there's things to fight about, even though drugs are not really one of them, but other things like the illicit elephant trade or slaves, both of which are outlawed in High Bay. The religious fantastics are there too. The cult of Akbasha, that's something that comes out of my campaign. Then you got a list of common drugs and their effects in game. If you ever wanted to figure out how you'd stat meth, well, here's how I did it, And then there's magical drugs like the blood sea amoeba, brain juice, chaos fruit, dragon power, fairy booze, ground rhinoceros horn, heavy holy water, and some tables about what happens when you've gotten high, drug effects, random encounters in High Bay, and lots of stuff to do there. So, and the Shithole is another area, this one in very far away in the southern continent and completely isolated from everywhere else. And it's kind of like my homage to settings like Dark Sun or I guess like Carcosa or things like that. It's a place that was the epicenter of the battle against the Dark Ones, who had been the ones that caused the fall of the Ancients and the armies of the good people that had come together to try to stop them after the Ancients vanished. And the entire place was totally devastated and left very weird with unusual mutations. There are elements of it, of like Roadside Picnic in there, if you're familiar with the reference. So it's a place that was walled off, basically, with this kind of force field, and then like with powerful magic that created an entire ring of mountains around the entire area. And so like everything that was in there was left trapped in there, and nothing could theoretically get out. But of course, some things can get in and can even get out. Now it's actually, because 10,000 years have gone by and things have weakened, it is relatively easy to go into the Shithole. It is still harder to get out. So it's a place where characters can get stuck for a while. At the center of the Shithole, you will find the lost city of Tijuana, and of course the Sphincter, which is the name of the great pit that is at the center of the of the Shithole. Mutant patrols. Shithole tribes, you can randomly generate different types of Shithole tribes, and here are some descriptions of different types of mutants that you can have, mutant humans and animals, name tables, details about, different tribes that you encounter, ambitions and characters. So it's an entire generator. That's what you need. You need to have an entire generator when you do a random table about an area. Then area travel, different things that you can, random things that you will find in the Shithole as you travel from one place to another. So you can definitely make, there isn't a map of the Shithole in this book, or indeed in anywhere except my mind, because I don't really do I don't do a hex crawl by mapping, but you could perfectly make a hex map, of X number of squares and determine that's the Shithole, and use the random tables to fill it all in there. Random junk that you can find in the Shithole. Lots of opportunities for adventuring in a place of extreme danger and challenges. And then we have the floating city of Lull, which is a floating city that's in one of the it is a city on an island in the upper band of the floating islands, which is a city that was a combination. It's an homage to a source book that was written, a DCC book called something like the 997th Council of Wizards or something like that. So I made it's kind of a parody of it, I guess you could say, because it's a setting where you have this city where for a long time you had the technological techno-walruses and the magical Council of High Wizards coexisting, and things were very prosperous, and the Guardian robots were keeping things safe. And then Bill the Elf's party showed up, and everything went to crap. Right? Everything just fell apart, and now the city is plunged in civil war between the surviving factions of what's left of the Council of Wizards, the Republic of the Techno Walruses, and then various revolutionary forces with an enormous area of no man's land in the middle. But it's a place, it's like, let's say, a post-apocalyptic high-tech city. So it's a place where you can go, and if you can make your way through the different factions of the civil war that are going on between the magicians and the technologists and the political radicals, and the now evil guardian robots that want to exterminate, then you can end up having a chance at getting, all kinds of potential action and benefits. Sewer systems. Details about the threats to LoL, random encounters on LoL. Then you have, these are the random encounters by section on LoL. And then the next one you have is Fox Station Aleph. This one is, of course, my response to the challenge of Venger's Alpha Blue, which is, I thought that Alpha Blue was a neat idea made stupid by Venger. And so I said, well, I've got to try to do a similar thing, but better, right? So it's a gigantic space station, sky station in the case of World of the Last Sun, that was created by the most high-tech civilization post-ancient that ever existed. But then it was left derelict for a long time, and then it was taken up by like space pirates, and now it's become a place that's in that has the biggest entertainment and luxury facilities in all of the World of the Last Sun, and as well as high tech commerce and merchants. It's like it's a hub of sky commerce and also lots of sky, it's like Sky Las Vegas, basically. It's got a lot of sky entertainments of different kinds, including the sexual kind, right? But it also is a place that has a lot of secrets. Only like 30% of the entire, because the station is gigantic, right? It's bigger than some of the floating islands, and so like only 30% of the 100 levels that it has are actively being used. And there's all kinds of groups also and things like that. And you can go there to buy high-tech weapons, lots of details for that, for your game, high-tech items of different kinds. There's also places that have magic and other services. And there are accommodations, etc., and an encounter table, right, with all kinds of stuff that you can have, potential patrons. It's a place where a lot of people go to, if you're flying in the Sky Islands, where you'll go trying to get a job of some kind. And now we get to other wonders of the Last Sun. The Grand City of Gold, Halcyon. That's a city. This is a smaller entry about a city that's north of High Bay, ruled by an evil gold mutant despot named Gold Eater, who made a spell that means that anytime someone says his name out loud, wherever that person is in the world, they will hear a little jingle, like Gold Eater. And Gold Eater is a very powerful despot who is threatening to potentially take control of the entire region, including the city of High Bay. So it's basically an enemy location for High Bay, but it has some interesting details of its own. Gold Eater is a classic. He's like a Bond villain, basically, right? So he has his henchmen and thing. It can be a whole adventure to try to, take him out, or to make an alliance with him against other things that might try to destroy High Bay, right? The Azure Order of Wizards are an order of magicians who are extremely good and highly heroic. They're also magicians that, for whatever reason, they are of fluid, non-conforming, or indeterminate gender. That's one of their foundational categories. They're not played as a joke any more than the rest of the world is. They're actually some of the most kind of like heroic people that you will find in the World of the Last Sun, except, well, the joke isn't, well, they are, of course there's a joke, but the joke isn't about, their qualification for entry. It's about the rest of their kind of philosophy of doing everything by consensus, which means that it takes them forever to do anything at all. Right? So it's actually a joke. It started as a joke about the consensus process of, like the Occupy Wall Street movement, And so it's like that tells you how long I've been running this campaign, right? They're a group that has very powerful resources and can act as a patron group for player characters, or even as a member group for a player character, assuming that character is either voluntarily or involuntarily of altered gender than their birth gender, let's say. Ice Dome Zero is a place far, far in the northern tundra that I came up with because of a specific adventure I wanted to make, which is the Horlax and the Ancient of Trees are both encounters that you can have in Ice Dome Zero. So there's only a couple of pages there, but it's if you want to like have an adventure where you send someone all the way to like the tundra for a kind of horror story, there you go. So that's everything you get in World of the Last Sun. It's got, as you see, a ton of tables, a ton of resources, a ton of things in it that if you don't want to run in the World of the Last Sun or in one of the settings, like you can take a whole section, you can take High Bay and put it by itself in a game world, and you don't need any of the other parts to be there for High Bay to make sense, right? Or the floating islands. The floating islands are basically self-contained compared, vis-a-vis the surface. So you wouldn't need to have the other parts of the setting. You could have the floating islands and FSA and LOL without using the rest. But you can also like pick little bits out of everything that's in there and use whatever you like for your gonzo style game, or to make your game more gonzo than typical. It is a level of weird fantasy that is not quite as silly as let's say late edition Gamma World or Venture Satanis' stuff, but is more silly than stuff like the standard DCC default, right? Because one of the things that I base this on is that I base the setting on is that there seem to be some really silly elements to the DCC rules. In fact, the whole World of the Last Sun started because of the question of God in DCC, right? Because a cleric can end up getting disapproval from their god just because they, got a failed roll, right? A natural one. So that even if they're like doing something absolutely essential in the moment. And so I thought, well, what kind of world would it be where that happened, right? And it's got to be a world where God is a defective machine. And that was the very beginning of World of the Last Sun. So it's a world that I realized that if you're playing DCC in the main book, because there are some source books that kind of become more gonzo than the main book, but if you look at the main book by itself, it doesn't reveal that, right? And actually DCC rules as written are meant to be, they create a style of play that makes for a very weird world, unless you're explaining that world, and that's part of what my World of the Last Sun does. So anyways, now you've seen everything that's in it. Go check it out. You can get it from Drivethru RPG, and I believe it's in softcover, hardcover, or PDF. I do not remember offhand what the price is, but the link is going to be in the description below. It's not a price tag here, is there? No. But go check it out. It is I don't remember if it's a gold bestseller or an ELECTRUM bestseller now. I think it's an ELECTRUM bestseller still, but anyway, go check it out and share this video anywhere you think anyone might be interested about it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Check out all my other products too. If gonzo isn't your style, then check out Lion and Dragon and all my medieval authentic stuff, which is like the opposite. Like I do things on this spectrum and then the exact opposite of the spectrum with the old school companions and Lion and Dragon, which is like really serious medieval mythic epic role playing, and this is like the stuff I do for fun. So check all that out and keep watching, and have a happy Easter, everyone. Oh, yeah. Currently smoking. Neerup, what is this? Neerup Hawkbill plus Argento Natural.